We return now to this breaking news out of Toronto. This is a look at Toronto Pearson International Airport, where a Delta Airlines flight has crashed, and it appears that it has crashed really fell on the roof. So it's actually belly up, as you can see from this video. Just remarkable to see. Preliminary reports say at least 8 people have been hurt, and all passengers, however, have been accounted for. We understand this was a flight coming from Minneapolis. Law enforcement and paramedics are still on scene assessing, and at this time it is unclear how this crash happened. We're joined live right now by aviation expert Scott Hamilton to give us help us make sense of this a little bit. So Scott, first your reaction, especially upon seeing these pictures.
Obviously, the fact that there are only 8 injuries and we don't know the extent of them, but there are no fatalities is really good news, clearly.
You know, we are perhaps hyper aware of flight incidents, especially in recent weeks and months, but this is really completely isolated from the other collisions and other crashes that we've been following in recent weeks. Just to point that out and make that clear.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Now, it is the same kind of airplane that was involved in the collision over by Washington Reagan Airport, but very different circumstances, obviously.
So this is a Delta Airlines jet. Do we have an idea of the make and model of this particular jet? Maybe how many passengers it could have held at the time?
The news reports say that it's a CRJ 900, which is a regional airliner. It typically seats about 70 passengers in configurations of this type of operations.
So Scott, you know, we're looking at video right now, and we saw some live pictures earlier. What's so incredible about these pictures is that it's belly up. It appeared, and we don't know yet if it if it crashed and went down upside down like that, or perhaps it overturned while it was on the tarmac. Do we have any insight on how this might have happened?
Well, we don't at this point, but you can see that Toronto has a lot of snow, so they're going to be looking at the runway conditions, if there was any ice on the runway that caused the airplane to skid along the runway and then flip after it would have gone off the runway. They'll be looking at the approach speeds and the landing speeds of the aircraft. They'll be looking at what kind of wind conditions there are out there. Just looking at this video, it looks like the wind is blowing pretty heavily out there. They'll be looking at all of that, obviously.
Certainly, and again, this is video. It just shows that the conditions there are quite snowy and icy as well. Again, this is out of Toronto, video that you're looking at right now. You know, we're hearing that 8 people have been injured. At last check, that these are preliminary reports. This is preliminary information coming right now. But, you know, considering that and just how the plane looks, what does that tell you about the structural integrity of that aircraft and the way it sort of flipped over?
Well, it's interesting that many accidents, and in fact, most accidents are survivable, at least at some level these days. And over the decades, the seats for that the passengers sit in have been strengthened to have what's called 16G capability. That's the G force of an accident. So that helps. The interiors have had better improvements for fire suppression. So if this accident proves to be 100% survivable or close to it, which it sounds like it is, all of that goes into this factor being a survivable accident.
And Scott, speaking of fire suppression, when we're looking at the live pictures again right now out of Toronto, we have yet to find out more, but there does not appear, at least from these pictures right now, that there was a fire. There does not appear at this time that there was any sort of explosion at last check. Of course, we're still checking on those things, but that's obviously good news that there was no fire or apparent fire. That just goes to show perhaps the integrity of the plane itself at the time when it went down.
Well, I did see a report that there may have been at least a small fire. That's okay. Unconfirmed at this stage. The fact that the wings separated from the airplane and it did not catch fire is, quite frankly, could be classified as a miracle, because that's usually when fires happen, when the wing separates with the fuel coming out of the wings. So there's obviously at this point there are more questions than we have answers for, but this looks like a very lucky circumstance if you're going to have an accident.
Certainly. Okay, thank you very much. Scott Hamilton, you are our aviation expert. Thank you for the insights. We'll, of course, continue to follow this for any updates as they come in. Thank you, Scott.
Sure.